Awesome. Welcome, everybody. Sorry for the little bit of a delay there. We just had a little bit of a technical issue as we came in, but thank you so much for everyone for joining the Hayylo Insights webinar. I'm joined today with some really special guests. I have Michael Wickham, who is Manager of Sales and Customer Experience at Southern Cross Care Tasmania. Welcome, Michael.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Awesome. I also have Michael Donnelly, Head of Aged and Disability at Telstra Health. Michael is joining us via phone today, linked in through our technology here at Hayylo, which is awesome. Welcome, Michael, if you're there.
Yeah, hi, Simon, and hi, everyone.
Awesome, fantastic. And Greg Satter, longtime friend, CEO and co-founder of Hayylo. How are you, Greg?
Hey, everyone. Good afternoon. Look forward to the conversation. Thanks for coming.
Awesome. And yeah, we'll see if we can see Michael Donnelly's face a little bit later in the session. But if not, Michael is here through voice and some really nice, quick work there to get him patched in. So thank you, everybody, for joining us. Look, I appreciate that it's a very busy time out there at the moment, but just did want to take a quick moment to say we have a fantastic audience today. We had a little look at the list of people that are joining us, and just to see so many providers join us for this conversation, software vendors and industry bodies alike, and coming on to join us in what, I think is going to be a really kind of important conversation, for us as a collective and also for the sector. So thank you all for taking time out of your busy schedules for this. It's a really exciting stage, for us here today to talk a little bit about the partnership and obviously the impact and effects that's having not only with Southern Cross Care in Tasmania, but hopefully rippling across the sector as we go. So I know you're all busy, and I thought we could just get straight into the pragmatics today. So I'm just going to kick things off, and what I'd like to do, Michael Wickham, is I think I'd like to start with you today. Obviously, as a provider providing services across home care, residential care in Tasmania, which we were talking a little bit before this about how much we miss getting down there to that beautiful state. And Michael, what I was really interested in kicking things off with today is giving us a little bit of a lay of the land on what the world was like on an operational level before Hayylo, before the Telstra Health partnership, and just giving us a little bit of insight into, what did the world look like before your time there and before the partnership kind of started and took off?
Yeah, I guess for us, and probably like a lot of providers in the country at the moment, it's labour heavy. There's a lot of time spent, especially with our scheduling teams, adjusting clients' expectations, I guess. And a lot of that work has been done manually. It would require phone calls between clients and caregivers. A lot of, I guess, time spent on the phone.
Yeah, of course. And it's an interesting conversation because we have this conversation with a lot of different providers and people like across the sector. And what I was interested to dig in a little bit around that is obviously maybe kind of going a little bit deeper into some of the effects that has on, the team and the resources available and what have you. But before we kind of get into that, I was keen to understand how the organisation as a whole, and maybe even yourself, really, saw that problem when you came in, because I know you've kind of come in from another sector, but I was more kind of generally interested to see how the organisation itself perceived that problem. Did you know what it was? Did you know how to fix it? Talk me through that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, we certainly probably knew, and probably driven from our CEO, we knew that there were efficiencies that could be made, and there were certainly better ways we could be communicating with our clients. And I think that was one of the biggest drivers for us, is how do we communicate better with our clients? It was clunky, it was time consuming, and not always, I guess, best practice, which kind of led us, and driven by the CEOs, like, well, how do we improve this? What is on the market and what can we do to create some efficiencies around this and provide a better service for our client?
Yeah, amazing. So there was a real recognition of communication as really the cornerstone of it. Okay, that's quite. Sorry, Greg, were you going to say jump in there?
Yeah, I was just saying that Michael, when we talk with a lot of providers like yourselves and across the country, and one of the things that we hear a lot is teams, customer service, scheduling are really busy just fielding calls from customers, from family members around common types of topics, just the most common types of topics. And that those topics were consuming a lot of time for the teams. Topics like who's coming to visit me, when is someone coming, can I change something? Was that some of the characteristics of what you saw across your teams in terms of the types of inquiries that they were getting and that it was taking effort for the teams to kind of deliver that information out?
Yeah, definitely. And it was those common things. It's like, when is my next service? And just something as simple as that. Whereas before we were manually having to send them out a schedule of their services and continually updating those. And then the family member didn't have the up-to-date. So yeah, there was a lot of time spent just answering basic questions.
Yeah.
Which
yeah.
we knew that there had to be a technology solution for that. And the way the world is now. Yeah.
One of the I love that, because we see that all so much. We see that so much across the space that we work in. And Michael, coming from other industries, it's the concept of self-service. Why do you think that wasn't in existence for our sector for so long? What do you think some of the drivers are?
Well, it's interesting because coming in from another sector which was very technology based, and I come from the automotive industry of the German manufacturers, so they're very much cutting edge and leading the way with that sort of thing. But what I did notice, a lot of the systems are, I guess, archaic. They weren't set up for the 21st century. They're very reliant on manual input. But the world's moved on, and I guess I don't know whether there's been this assumption that because we're looking after frail aged people that they don't know how to use technology. Yeah, we know, and all the research tells us that they're one of the biggest adopters of technology.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. One of the things I think, Simon, when I thought about the increased usage that we've all undertaken in the last 18, 24 months, just out of pure necessity to connect. Michael, we've seen people that were less familiar with technology reach for it and become more familiar. And that's really promising, because when we think about business optimization, which is what we are always trying to do with our customers, it seems that this now presents all organizations in a way they would like to do it, with more opportunities to share information with their clients, communities in different ways, and in ways that they're becoming more comfortable with, such as email and digital forms of technology. That's really powerful. I love that so much. The thing that I was thinking about is the benefits for the team. When you think back at some of those problems that your team had, how does helping customers and clients have more self-service access to this information kind of help that in a way?
Yeah, well, I guess it's just freed up more of their time to be providing care rather than working on something like a schedule. And I think the thing I love the most is seeing our staff who are like, oh, our clients are never going to use this. Guess what? They are, and they're adopting it really quickly. And those now that regularly use it to change a service or request another service is amazing. And they even now, like, our staff are just blown away that is happening and clients are actually using it in that way.
Yeah. I agree. One of the things, and this might be a question for Michael Donnelly from Telstra. I guess, Michael, when you hear those kind of problems, are they some of the challenges that your customers have seen across the years, and how do you kind of think about them and the catalyst for thinking about things and the partnership with Hayylo?
Yeah, sure, Greg. Well, first of all, I'd agree with Michael's assessment of software in the industry, and that is that for a long time, things were done the same way, and features were built on top of older and older software to the point when consumer-directed care kicked in over the last few years. Most of the Australian-based products in the market were 20-year-old plus. And so as a result of that, they have built up, all of them, really significant and important functionality, and they have people using them who are used to every part of that. And so, we certainly acknowledged when we acquired some of these businesses from Telstra Health that whilst they've done an absolutely fantastic job and still do have wonderful teams, as we look forward, the world has changed and will continue to. And so sitting alongside the three products that we're continuing to maintain and support and develop is a new cloud-based modular interoperable platform that is not quite there yet for many of our clients. But we look forward to the day that it is. And in the meantime, our approach is to say, from a client-first landscape, how can we add value straight away? Now, certainly at the moment, with the way the world is and the changes to compliance, we're beavering away in all our teams to make sure that we are compliant in every part of the software. But we're also looking at the value adds. And to do that, as always, we talk to clients, and the Hayylo name kept coming up. And as a result of that, we've been talking to you guys for some time and realised that there is a really significant value add that we can deliver longer term, but also with current products we've got shorter term. And so that is really the lens. We'll build out the best sort of workforce management, rostering, scheduling, compliance reporting, insightful type product we can. And we'll look to organisations like Hayylo if we think there is a value add offering for our clients and that the organisation is really committed to the Australian market. We see that both of you guys.
Yeah, that's great. Greg, did you have any comment on that? I did want to step back on one thing quickly before we talk a little bit more about the partnership.
Please do.
I was going to ask, and you may have covered this a little bit before, so I apologise for stepping back on this one. But Michael Wickham, what I've been interested about in our time in the sector is, and even more so now, and is just how busy providers are generally. The day-to-day, things are moving, things are changing, government legislation's changing constantly. We talk about it all the time, the kind of reactive nature of the sector. And I was wondering, with all those moving pieces, and as Michael Donnelly was talking about, the compliance and these kind of core infrastructures, the core operating kind of elements of technology across the sector, what drove you as an organisation to start to prioritise that a little bit further? Was there something specific?
Yeah, well, I guess for us, it's knowing that communication is key. And in terms of compliance, a lot of it really comes back to how we communicate with clients and their loved ones. And to be able to do that effectively, but also free up more of our time to actually provide care, which is what we're here for. But looking at solutions too, and now that anything that we actually look at has to work with everything we've got, and that's not easy. And I guess that's one of the reasons we looked at Hayylo, is because it could work with the current systems we had. And when we look at rolling this out through residential later on, is having that ability to link it to our software that our staff in our residential homes are using to provide progress notes and things like that. Rather than double handling information, there has to be efficiencies with it, because our staff have more than enough to do already without putting something else onto them. So it's, looking at those things that are going to work for the business and for the resident.
Yeah, I really like that. I know for myself personally, I help manage my grandmother's care. I think I'm probably the most qualified in the family now. And, I went through a situation where we were just rearranging services, and it was via email at the time, and there was a lot of back and forth around who was the main contact and getting those things organised. But what has been interesting, and as you were talking about, is that same situation, that is from the, call it the internal teams, the operational teams out into the community, into the care recipients, also happens internally, between the business lines, from home care into residential or other platforms. And one of the things that we've been discovered is that's quite a manual process at times. So these tools that enable that movement of information, not internal to external, but also within the organisation, seem to be of great benefit as well.
Yeah, huge benefit.
Awesome. Okay, so Greg, I thought with Michael Donnelly, you did a great job. This is going to get confusing. I'm going to use everyone's full names today, but Greg or Michael, you gave a really kind of nice explanation of I guess the current state of affairs for the technology at Telstra Health and some of the reasoning behind that, and might be able to extend on that for us. But Greg, maybe you could talk from your perspective around the technology, around the partnership as a whole, and what it is, and what you think it kind of means for the sector moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. So at Hayylo, when you think about the core belief that we have, it's about putting the client at the center. And we just believed by connecting the people and the right data in the right ways at the right times, and in ways that people understand, that it would drive efficiency, and some of those efficiencies that you were talking about, Michael W, for your team, to allow your team the space to deliver on that customer experience that you're setting as a standard across your organization. Now, if I think back to 2018, when we were at ITAC, when we were all of us here in this conference, to get together in person and have good conversations. One of the things that we were talking about then was for us to collectively move the dial forward and to help serve the sector and to help serve our customers like Southern Cross Care Tas and others, is that an integrated and a partnered approach is super valuable. So just as Michael W, you were talking about the need for systems to talk to each other, this is really one of the strong points of how I think about the partnership with Telstra. And I'll ask Michael Donnelly a question in a moment around that, and for your views. But Telstra Health are working across the sector, and they're doing some amazing work supporting people from a client billing and rostering perspective. Hayylo is focused on the communication side, those other costs and those other values of streamlining communication and quietening the noise, so that teams can focus not on the high volume, repetitive questions that we all have an opportunity to push out to the edges of our network, the customers and their families, now for them to self-serve it. And it gives them the space to do all of that other work that they really want to do. So I guess the way I think about the partnership is, so Telstra Health and Hayylo have partnered, and we've actually, when we get onto the part of the conversation where we can talk about some of the cool things that we're able to do for Michael, your team, I was very impressed by our teams being, all three of our teams working together to deliver that, which was awesome. But the partnership is unlocking new ways of interoperability and a synergy between vendors in the space that's so awesome, in the sense that when vendors work together to provide solutions to problems that we're all facing on a daily basis, the solutions that are provided are deep, are wide, are considered and are holistic, and they can provide real value. And to say that another way, it's we've been super excited working with the Telstra Health team, because we've been working with, as Michael Donnelly mentioned, we've been working together for quite a while, and this partnership it's taken a good time to set up so that it is something strong and powerful, and we're delivering gains to the sector. But one of the greatest things we're doing is, at a product level, we're working really closely with the Telstra teams to enhance and to provide abilities for interoperability that have not otherwise been previously possible. Michael W was saying before about some of the technology and the platforms that are in place at the moment. They have limited capabilities in terms of interoperability. I'm really optimistic so far, and for how we're going to be working closely with Telstra Health in the future to enhance the ways that the communication between clients and families interacts with the system of record, which is the care management system, to make sure that there's an auditable trail, to make sure that everything is in the one place. So there are great things that happen when organisations can work together, and we can work together at a lower level. Michael Donnelly, I guess, how do you think about the partnership with Hayylo and the things that it'll bring for the sector?
Pretty much like you do, Greg. And I guess the starting point for us is, and disability care is a long game. I was part of the Health business, and we sold to Telstra Health in 2014, and we did that because we wanted to ramp up what was predominantly a residential aged care software business. Then we had a small community product, home care manager, and we then inherited a couple of other key products as well. So we sort of have known for a long time that there is further investment that is required in aged care generally, and as it changes and has changed, aged care software, aged and disability software must be part of that really significant investment. So, we think long term we're looking for people who are genuine and genuinely have the client at the centre and aren't looking for a quick buck. This is a long play. I think whatever about Telstra and Telstra Health, what they have proven financially is a really deep commitment to the sector. And if anyone was in any doubt whatsoever, the 500 million that's just been spent over the last month in acquiring two organisations, including Medical Director, should underpin that this is a long play. Telstra Health is really committed to do it. We don't want to do everything and own everything. We are really looking for the best results for clients, and we want to work with people who are like-minded, genuinely have the client at the centre, and are wanting to invest also, like you guys.
Yeah, that's great, Michael. Sorry, Greg, anything to extend on that?
No, I think that was the key point that Michael Donnelly was just mentioning is the co-investment. I know that Hayylo has invested in creating deeper connections between the platforms so that it can drive results for Michael W's team, so that they're not rekeying information and so that it's all in the same place. That is a really great and healthy place for a partnership, in my mind, to be, where we've got both teams forging together for a common outcome. So, and that's actually, from my memories, right, speaking to Tanya, our delivery manager, that produced some good wins for the project for Michael W's team. But Simon, I know you're probably going to cover that shortly.
Yeah, look, yeah, for sure. There's some kind of really interesting comments and questions coming through. So I might bring this down to a little bit more of a tactical level for people. And there's some great ones around client outcomes, which I want to get to, who Mike just dropped a question in there, which is great. But I might start with George has joined us again and did want to comment that the good old days of ITAC will be back March 1st to 2nd, 2022 in Sydney. So thank you, George. We're looking forward to seeing everybody again then if we can. I've got a question here from Sophie and another one from Kevin, who was just talking about kind of like, Sophie was asking around filters around searching for suburbs and things, but I might direct that more into a question for yourself, Greg, and Michael Donnelly to kind of extend. But we've been speaking obviously at the partnership on a higher level. I think we've been speaking about, the movement of data and those systems connecting, but what's the kind of context, just very briefly, around, I guess, the features or what now is possible with those applications talking to each other? Maybe to start with you, Greg, just around some context on that on a little bit of a deeper level. Yeah,
great. So Hayylo is all about communicating the relevant information to the stakeholders, such as Michael W's clients and communities around them. When we do an integration and when we link into platforms like Michael Donnelly's team and Telstra Health more widely, it's about looking at key information such as the clients, the workers, the visits, and those types of information, bringing them into Hayylo and allowing the Hayylo to analyze them and understand what's going on. Hayylo then makes a choice around when to contact the user, the client, the family, when it needs to update people in that circle of care. So I think that one of the great things is, and especially as it relates to, as Michael Donnelly was talking about, some of the core platforms that Telstra Health have today, we view them in the Hayylo world as the system of record, and is our responsibility to make sure the system of record is updated as conversations and communications occur within that are relevant to be tracked there. So if a customer submits an inquiry, that's logged in there. If a team has a conversation with a customer, that's also logged in there, just so that when it comes down to the auditing purposes and the auditing functions, should that be needed, then you've got a full audit trail there. So one of the great things that Team Telstra have been able to do for our team is to enable that function to occur and enable us that bi-directional exchange of information between the two worlds. And that's really key. So a lot of the time it's a read-only approach to synchronize the system so that when clients are activated in the care management system, they're activated in Hayylo. That's normal. But now we can take the conversations that are occurring in Hayylo and make sure that they've got a place and they're registered back in the in the Telstra systems. And Michael W., when I'm thinking about your team, that's and you were talking about the keying and the double entry of information, that's a great, we see that as a great value add of optimization for your team.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're moving with technology and driving tablets at the bedside, records being taken there and then rather than information having to be entered again later. It's definitely going to be a huge value add.
Awesome. Yeah, I think generally, Simon, that when we see two groups working together like this, it enables, that's just the start of it. It enables more ways for us to be able to, as a collective, ensure that customers like Michael have all of their things in the right place, and that it's driving that optimization for them and they're not double handling. Yeah.
That's great. Michael, Donnelly, any comments on that before I want to unpack a comment here, because I think it's going to take it to a really interesting place, but any comments on that before we move on?
Sure, Simon. Look, just a quick one, I think, to add to what the guys have said, and that is, the beauty in this arrangement is we're completely complementary. So, there's some smart boys and girls at your end, as there are at ours, and we're going to be able to have some joint conversations with clients that are obviously difficult to have if you're in a competitive environment. So I really, I know the arsenal that we've got at our end in terms of ammunition to build some really interesting things, and I think working with Hayylo is going to just add some value to, jointly what we can do together.
Yeah, fantastic. Okay, so I'm gonna shift focus a little bit here, because there's a great comment from Mike, and thank you for it. Mike's kind of just called out that, great, efficient communication, it makes sense. It's but we talk a lot about putting the client at the center of everything that we do, and Mike's kind of calling out or asking, can the product drive, I guess, good lives. In another way of putting it, kind of saying, what does it mean for the end client? What does it mean for the people actually in the community that are receiving the supports? Is it just the same care being delivered, but more efficiently through better communication and the connection of these systems, so the operational efficiencies are happening in the background? Maybe Michael Wickham is probably the best person to answer this in a sense. What does it actually mean though in real terms for people? Is it actually going to make any difference to the care that's being supported, or is it just going to make things more efficient and cost effective?
Well, I think it's going to do both. I mean, ultimately what you want it to do is save you time. So less time spent inputting data for our staff and providing care is better outcome for the client. Better communications with the systems, but also then with their loved ones and their circle of care, is going to provide a better holistic view for everyone, I guess. And that's how we see it. It's I think it's win-win.
Yeah, fantastic. Greg, any comments on that?
Yeah. So in what we see is unexpected things occurring when we'll use those words, that circle of care. So, like you have the client at the center, and then you have these circles around them, the formal support. So your team, Michael W. Then you have a concentric circle outside of that, the informal supports, the family, the neighbors, they all play a role. And when you have inclusion and you have people being included and have data visible to them and information, and are able to hand things off more seamlessly between them, there have been, it provides a great experience for the clients. So we've seen, I think, and Simon, you'll know some of this as well, so feel free to extend, around reductions in anxiety from clients that are using Hayylo, that have been included and that can see more information, reductions in anxiety for family members and those types of things. So I think that, I think giving people what we find and what we do internally at Hayylo is, with our own team, is giving the team members space so that they can think and focus on what it is that they're doing. There's such a wonderful thing that happens when you give people the space to consider and think about what it is that they're doing and focus on it, minus a lot of the distractions. Focus time is underrated, and having focus time gives you the ability to go more deeply into a certain topic. And you know, at Hayylo, from the way we see it, we absolutely love that. And I think that talks to what you were talking about then, Michael W.
Yeah, perfect. And Michael Donnelly, any extension on that before I field some of the next comments and questions coming through?
Yeah, sure, Simon. Look, it's an obvious point that it's the wonderful people in this sector delivering care who are, you know, the most important, and that will never change. But some of the insights and information that we may be able to help deliver to them in time, working with organisations like Hayylo, is going to be really important. And I'll just reference one quick thing. We, in the residential side of our business, which obviously has a much stronger clinical focus at this point, although, you know, home care in time will have people living there with greater acuity, so it'll become relevant. But we've got a partnership with the Digital CRC and RMIT University in Melbourne to look at the predictability of resident deterioration. So, you know, we have a view that if we can provide much better insights into what's happening with individuals, obviously starting with resi care and then moving across to home care, that is the sort of technology investment and partnership, in this case the university, that we really want to invest in to help the end user.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Michael. So Michael asked or set this question off. It was kind of commenting on you know, the responses being talking about kind of the trickle down benefits. I'm not sure if we've convinced him 100%, but I hope Mike that answered the question there for you. Anna's asked a really interesting question. I think we kind of touched on this a little bit before, but and I don't know if it comes down to size of the provider or you know, it's the maturity level and the technology or what have you. But Anna was wondering from the panel, from the group today, you know, when you look at the value or, you know, what value do you place on the provision of investment in basic IT infrastructure within aged care versus, you know, what Anna refers to as maybe the luxury of an integrated software system that does bring, you know, big wins for care delivery. You know, do you need to invest in one before the other? It seems probably potentially from a smaller size provider, but maybe Michael Wickham, to start with yourself, you know, from your experiences.
Yeah, I guess as Tasmania's largest provider, and we're multi-faceted business, we're independent living, we're home care, we are residential with 9 facilities and lots of different software. So I guess for us, we need to try and tie all those together without having to go back to huge investment in one software. And certainly the way the industry is being driven, we need to take a holistic approach to these clients. They're not residential, they're not home care, they're a client, and trying to tie those all together in our systems. In the background, we've made some changes with our finance system as well to try and bring everything into one place. And for us, it's about then being able to track that client journey throughout whatever service it is, but also then to be able to communicate with all those. So I think you definitely need the basics there to begin with. But then to be able to communicate and link all those things together, I think it's pretty powerful.
Yeah, we see a lot of some of the call them younger groups, if you will, or newer groups into the sector, really tackling that from the ground up and starting that journey of interoperability and integration from day one. And I think it's very possible these days. But Greg, what are your thoughts on that?
Look, we're a technology company, so in our development ecosystem, we have 130 tools or something like that. Right? Now the only reason that works is because they're sequenced together in a way that allows each one of those specialist tools to do that individual job. But that works well for us in that sense. When we think about our customers, information technology is fundamental enabler for any business that has the challenge ahead of them to scale, and to scale non-linearly. So to scale and not add linear costs to the business. So information technology and the infrastructure associated with it, and the core elements that we're talking about today, the care management systems, the communication elements, the billing elements, they're all key because those are the nuts and bolts of service delivery, service provision, and meeting expectations on the customer experience like Michael and the team have. So technology has a large role to play in our future. And I think that it's up to all of us and all of the ideas that come from the providers, that most of them come from the providers in terms of the way they want to drive the business forward, and working with their partners to deliver on some of those things. That's really fundamental. So in terms of the question around what needs to be in place first, communication in home care is a part, whether you have a communication platform or not, it is a large part of the business. Most groups, a lot of groups that we speak to are doing that via telephone at the moment. That is the communication mechanism today. So you have a system in place. The fundamental elements are communication, a service delivery platform, and a billing platform, and the compliance elements that come along with it. Those key pieces are really required to run a business. And leveraging technology and continuing to dig in and understand possibilities with that technology is really important, because it opens new ways for your teams to do things more efficiently, because pausing for a moment, adjusting the approach, and then moving forward will most of the time give you more forward momentum, more speed, more time for your teams to focus on the things that they want to focus on.
Yeah, great. Michael Donnelly, anything from you on that?
No, very supportive of everything that's been said. I guess from a software vendor's perspective, we want the same thing as our clients at the end of the day. We want seamless integrations that deliver a fantastic experience for our end client, but also don't cripple the business in terms of being too complex to manage. So, hence the investment that we're making across the board in new modular cloud-based technology. We're a long way in front on the residential aged care side of our business, and we're making even bigger investments on the community and disability side. And it's pretty exciting, I guess, what we can deliver for clients at the end of the day with that. Yeah,
fantastic. Sorry, Greg.
And Simon, just on that, and following on from Michael Donnelly, whatever platforms and infrastructure is put in place, it does have to have a clear return on investment. That is fundamental in terms of the value exchange. So, from a Hayylo perspective, we're committed to the efficiency that's driven through communication. That's what we believe in. That's where we focus. And then we partner with groups like Southern Cross Care Tasmania to enhance their organisation, supported and partnering with groups like Telstra Health to deliver that as well. So you definitely need, whatever decision your teams are making, whatever size your business is at, focusing on that and making sure that you've got a good ROI, or return on investment, is really key to making sure that it's providing value to your organisation, whether it be solving a problem today or preparing your business for scale. Both of those are really valid ways to kind of look at that, and that's how we try to look at it as well.
Yeah, great, awesome. So there's been a couple of interesting comments and questions come through. One of them, I believe, we have an application for a position which I might send to both that Michael's post this to have a little bit of a look at. So thank you, Peter, for that. There was a question from Richard just around the GP software and how that's potentially going to integrate. And Michael Donnelly, that might be something that you guys will cover through your communications out of Telstra Health a little bit later. So we might leave that one to post this. And there was also another comment that came through around really looking at the exact types of interactions that are possible, you know, between the care provider, Hayylo, and the client. So Greg, we kind of touched on that a little bit before, but I might get you to wrap that up into Jeanette's question, because I thought this was a really nice one. So we're talking about kind of the touch points out into you know, from the provider out into the client through Hayylo, and integrated obviously back through into Telstra Health. But Jeanette was kind of asking, you know, is there proof points on the customer experience in regional and remote areas? And I think to combine those two concepts is quite an interesting thing. And I might go to you, Greg, first, and then, you know, Michael Wickham, and then Michael Donnelly. But, you know, what are the general interactions that we see? You know, what are the types of channels potentially and interactions, and how does that play out in regional and remote?
Yeah. So interestingly enough, one of our Lighthouse customers early in their Hayylo journey, we started regional and remote. Actually, that's where we started focusing as an organisation. We were just drawn to it, and some of the initial customers who are still with us today are regional and remote, serve regional and remote communities all across Australia. Yet the challenge for regional and remote initially was, aside from the technology and thinking about, hey, what's going to be useful, and I'll also touch on the core use cases, started to hit a point of, is there connectivity? Can our customers connect, and how would they connect? So one of the ways that we look to do that, and to serve the most common types of interactions, and to solve our job is to, with Hayylo, is to try and solve the most common customer questions before they need to reach out to their provider, self-service. So it was really around, you know, 60% of inquiries that hit most home care providers are around 3 or 4 types of questions: and who's coming, when are they coming, when is my service, can I create a new service, can I cancel it, and then everything that surrounds that. Those things take time. And when we looked at regional and remote, one of the challenges ahead of us was to reach as many of those clients and their families as possible, regardless of where they were. So what the approach that we took was a multi-channel approach, and that simply means it's not just an app. There's telephone calls that call people, where people can call in and listen to their visits. It will tell them how much of their budget remains on their home care package. Those types of things were the things that we really wanted to enable, and have done so. So the reaching those communities is one thing, and I think that we've seen that to be vastly successful at scale, which is great, because it allows us to reach so many more people in these different areas. So from a Hayylo perspective, those are some of the common things in terms of answering some of those common questions around billing, and helping get the right information to these people in ways that they that make sense with them. Yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. And Michael Wickham, any kind of comment on that or thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, yes, definitely one of the things that we were looking at is that multi-channel approach. It's like, how do we communicate with our clients and their loved ones in the way that it actually suits them? So we're all different, and that's, I guess, been the education point with a lot of our staff. It's just like, we don't assume that somebody wants you to call them. We ask them, how do you want to be communicated to? How often do you want to be communicated to? And it's, I guess, putting the power back with them and having it in their hands. It's like they're dictating, this is how I want to be communicated to. And most people nowadays are happy to tell you that. And I think that that's one key thing that really drives a better customer experience. It's just like, it's their choice.
Yeah, fantastic. And Michael Donnelly, kind of thoughts and reflections on your time in the sector, and you know, how that stacks up.
Yeah, I agree with it. I mean, from a Telstra Health perspective, and way back to you know, the eye care days, and I'm sure the other brands in the community software that we look after, just a massive regional presence, regional and remote, and you know, it's the heartland of Australia, and we've got some wonderful clients across Australia, and they may have head offices in any one of the major cities or not, but even if they do have the head office in the city, often they've got some reach out into regional Australia. So yeah, just a really important part of our client base.
Yeah, fantastic. That's great. Anna's asked a little bit of a follow-up question here, and I might touch on one before we do, and because we're getting kind of to the close round, which is, thank you, Anna, because it's exactly what I actually wanted to talk about at the end here. So it's perfect segue. There was a question though around catering for CALD communities where English is not strong. So looking at language barriers and those kinds of things as well. Kind of any reflections on that? Maybe start with yourself, Greg, and maybe Michael Wickham on how you approach that at Southern Cross in Tasmania.
Yeah, from the Hayylo perspective, we've really been focused at present on serving as much of the English community as possible, English language community as possible. As we expand now, there is more of a need to consider localization into different kind of languages. So we'll be looking at that across 2022 to understand what may be next for us. Our ethos and the vision is really around including as many people as possible so that Michael W's team can do what they do as best as possible and just being that enabler. So, but Michael W, over to you. Does that resonate with you?
Yeah, certainly. And I guess we're always looking at how we're going to do things better moving forward. It's Tasmania is Tasmania. It's probably not a huge issue for us as it will be for, I guess, other areas in Australia. But yeah, certainly something we need to consider moving forward and how we deliver.
Great, that's great. So I might go on to the question from Anna, because the last part was that I was quite interested in digging into with the last kind of 5 or 10 minutes that we have is just around some kind of, I guess, tactical advice for people, providers out there that are heading down this journey. And I'll start with you, Michael, but just to kind of give a little bit of context, Anna was asking that, that with new technologies in the sector, that are kind of bolted on to the current infrastructure, there's obviously a lot of, time spent to do that implementation. So when you're looking at a diverse workforce, you're looking at the time barriers on training, so when approaching a particular type of software, how much, I like the term deconstructions required when you implement something like this. And I'll just riff and extend a little bit into the question that I had to kind of set this up for the last stage. Because what I was quite interested in is exactly that, as groups do go down this road, as we spoke about before, teams are very, very busy. Groups are out there trying to manage just the day-to-day, and there is an acknowledgement and understanding, I think, across the whole sector that communication is an important and very value-added concept to bring in. But what Michael, I might start with you. What tips can you give for people from your experience going through this? How has that played out with Hayylo and Telstra Health, and how can we provide a little bit of value to everyone before we finish up today?
Yeah, I guess for us it was, and that was one of the fears, because we've all had those systems that bolt on that don't work with anything else and never really deliver on what they promise. And I think that was one of the good things about Hayylo, is just the efficiency at which it was integrated with our Telstra systems. The information was there immediately, the data was valid. Our staff had confidence, I guess, in using that, but we also took a staged approach to how we rolled the system out. For us, it was really about targeting the clients and getting them to download the app and start using it. And then moving forward through that is then engaging the staff in how they can use it in their day-to-day work. So it was really, I guess, getting the clients on board first, and then, because we know our staff have so much to do. But I guess the other thing was it is such a simple system to use, and there really isn't a whole lot of training that's required. It is like any other app that you use. It's like our banking app. Just like that's how we use things now. That's the way of life. And I think if you can use a banking app, most people will easily use the Hayylo app.
Yeah, awesome. Greg, anything from you on that? I'm sure you've got a wealth of knowledge on how providers can approach this topic. Yeah,
so I think just in reflection about the project with Michael W's team, I think that simplicity and change. Simplicity is key to this, and also change management. So change management is inescapable in terms of implementing something new for your teams. I know that our delivery team was working very closely with the Telstra Health team, who were able to work with us at a technical level to enable the solution. I recall that. So Michael Donnelly, thank you very much for all of that. Your team was great. We were able to work through that as a collective for Michael W's team really well. The second thing is that we found that the Hayylo team works really closely with customers. So, and one of the things that we do is to step the customers through, and the teams and your teams, Michael W, around what this information is, where it comes from, very simplistically, and how to use it. So I think as we were talking about training, most of the time we run a very short 1 hour training session as a train the trainer session to help enable teams to use it more effectively. And then from there, it's really around the teams grasp onto the value of it, and they understand how it's helping the day-to-day, and that works really well. A champion approach in the project combined with working closely with the software team, whoever they are in that particular example, to help craft a plan that says, okay, don't just hand over this tool to us, but hand over the way in which you can guide us to use it in our day-to-day world. That was one of the key things that we always see as powerful when implementing it, to make sure that the training aspects around that question really are minimized, and that people start using it really effectively, because our responsibility is to take people on that journey and enable them to use these things that essentially make their lives easier once they become familiar with it. So I think the last part of that is we're always here post-project, and making sure you've got good partners to tap in on if you need additional knowledge, if you need additional assistance, and to come back to the table and help your teams mobilize and move forward.
That's great. And Michael, from your perspective with the implementations of Telstra Health, how does the team there kind of approach things on a high level?
So from our perspective, Simon, whether it be on the residential front or the community front, we've been growing the business for a long time. That means bringing on new clients. And if I think about that journey, there was a comment made before in residential aged care, about half the carers have English as a second language. So it is a scenario that has to be made as simple as possible for people to change, because everyone's busy enough. One of the things that we think about with our existing community disability software is that we want for those three products to be able to make a seamless transition to our new product. So to be able to bring data in seamlessly, all the usual stuff you'd expect, but also shifts, etc., just to make it as simple as possible for people on day one. So agree with all the comments. Everyone in this sector is far too busy to be held up on implementation. There's always going to be work to do, but you've just got to make it as simple as possible.
That's great. Thank you so much. And probably just to wrap things up, guys, we're nearly at time, so we'll just do some final comments. Meg is bringing some great insights into the chat there as well. But I think it's George, as always, bringing value and a little bit of fire, I think, on this comment. But as a final thought for everyone, and it was kind of in response to what Mike was asking before in the questions. George was saying that technology doesn't provide care; it facilitates and augments it. You still need carers, but the job becomes easier. And I think that's a really nice thing to kind of anchor on to finish. It is about the care and the people in the community, especially with what we're going through collectively at the moment. And, as a group of people here on the call today, and for everyone else that's joined us, I think is quite passionate to see that move forward. So any final thoughts, maybe instigated by that comment? I'll start with you, Michael Wickham.
Yeah, I guess definitely carers are the most important thing in that scenario. And yeah, the easier we can make life for them and the less arduous in terms of record keeping and that sort of thing, the better.
Fantastic. Greg, yourself?
Quite simply, as I said before, we're just an enabler of helping teams do what they do, but as best as possible. Yeah.
Great. Michael Donnelly, yourself?
As usual, Simon, George is absolutely spot on. No surprise for a man of his expertise across the sector and doing a great job in running ITAC. Now, I think it's spot on. Like, technology has to be an enabler, has to be easy to use, and has to be backed by a team that is really committed to constant investment. You know, I'll go back to my initial comments. It's a long game. It's not necessarily a massively profitable game, either aged care, and that's okay for those of us in it. So always put the client at the centre.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you so much. And look, that's us at time today, everyone. And just to start or end things more so, thank you so much, Michael Donnelly and Michael Wickham, for joining Greg and myself, and Greg for your insights again today. And just a big thank you to everyone that spent a little bit of time with us in what are very challenging times. It's a great show of strength for this sector, and we're just constantly blown away by the intent and passion everybody has. So a lot of love for everyone out there, and thank you so much for spending a bit of time with us. And we hope you're all safe and well, and we'll see you again for the next Hayylo Insights webinar. Thanks everyone for joining us.
Thanks, Simon.
Thanks,
everyone.
Have a nice day.